What's up, everybody? Welcome to SWAT MMA. We're smoking weed and talking mixed martial arts. This is episode number 79. My name is Jarrod, and I am here with Paul.
What up?
We are coming to you from the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. On today's episode, we are going to be talking all about the results of the Lomanchenko versus Lopez boxing match. We are going to discuss the results of the latest UFC Fight Island card with Brian Ortega and the Korean Zombie as headliners. And we're going to take a look forward to UFC 254, headlined by the lightweight title unification bout between Justin Gaethje and Khabib Nurmagomedov. Before we get into all those fights, let's get started with our weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
All right, everybody, fire it up. Whatever you're smoking, Paul and I are puffing down in the PAX 3 here on some Purple Punch Shatter. Now, if you are new to herb, or if you are unfortunate enough to live in a state or country that does not have legal cannabis dispensaries, you might be saying, Jarrod, Paul, what the hell is Shatter? Shatter is a cannabis concentrate. It's kind of a semi-transparent, glass-looking, but amber in color most of the time. Sometimes if you hold it in your hand, it gets a little taffy-like consistency. Yeah. But it's smoked traditionally in dab rigs, like if you're watching on video, this beautiful green and blue one we've got right here on the table, or in things like this PAX 3. But it's got a much higher concentrated level of THC. This is about 75% or so. Mm-hmm. And it is quite delicious. This Purple Punch is a mixture of Larry OG and Granddaddy Purple, kind of continuing down our path with the different OGs we've been smoking on, which we also have some flower today. We have some GG4, as we've had for a while. We've also added some Papa's OG to the mix. Now, Papa's OG is an OG Kush and Skywalker OG mix. This really famous for not only having its indica body high that you get, but this one is supposed to also have the traditional sativa cerebral effects as well. So that's what they say. We're going to puff it down and let you know what we think. Hope you are puffing on something good as well. And as I hit this PAX 3 and Paul hits that little bong, we are going to get started first with boxing, where we saw, Paul, not really an upset for us, because we called the Teofimo Lopez victory last week on the show. Both of us did. This is a fighter we've been long familiar with. We've written several articles for Slugfest magazine and featured him in our fight picks of the week. Of course, being as he's undefeated, every time we picked him, we were correct. And we were correct once again this weekend. An amazing performance on a free card on ESPN Plus, which was great. It came on after the UFC event, so it was a really excellent night of fights. What did you think of what you saw in the boxing ring on last Saturday night, Paul?
I think it was all a game plan. I feel like, here's the thing, is like when you go and do a fight with a guy who's skilled as Lomanchenko, you have to come in with a great game plan. And Teofimo Lopez just came in and he freaking just executed at all levels. I mean, granted, Loma was out of the ring for a little bit. You knew he was going to come in and start slow. You know, he doesn't necessarily start slow, but he comes in always and he likes to feel his opponent out.
He's more calculating in the early rounds, especially the first round. He's more seeing what you're doing and seeing, you know, your movement and your angles and what his opponent's showing him. He's much more concerned with that than he is scoring some early points or winning the round.
Yeah, absolutely. And then where on the other side, coming into the fight, he was thinking that Lopez was going to be more of a guy to maybe walk him down and maybe, you know, try to throw some big shots. He's got a lot of power in his hands.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
That's traditionally what Lopez has done.
Well, even to the point of when you look at the numbers exactly, Lopez throws as many power punches at the same volume as a guy, you know, this heavyweight. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He used to be the champion, but he lost. So he's got 41 knockouts, you know. You know what I'm talking about?
Deontay Wilder?
Yeah, Deontay Wilder.
Oh, like who else are you talking about?
Yeah, no, him and Deontay Wilder literally throw punches. And based on volume and statistics, Deontay Wilder throws 41% of his punches are power punches. Going into this fight, Lopez, 51% of his punches were power punches in all his fights. Where then you look at this fight, he came in with a complete different approach.
Absolutely.
He came in and he used his jab a lot. He created angles, and then he didn't let Lomachenko back up, reset, and pick his shots, which is he's known for doing. He's great at standing on the outside, hit him, creating a game plan where his opponent sets traps and he sets traps for them that just always make his shots land. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you mentioned taking angles. That was a really important aspect of this fight, especially in the early rounds. You had Lopez taking the angle away from Lomachenko that he wanted to use in order to get lined up for his big left hand. He wasn't able to grab it and use it the way he wanted to. And like you mentioned, we had jabs, we had lead uppercuts, we had a lot of things that I don't think Vasily was expecting to see.
No.
And by the time it took him to not only make his usual calculated adjustments in the beginning, then he wasn't able to do what he was expecting to do against Lopez. And it just, to my opinion, it threw him off long enough where it really cost him. Like, he didn't really open up until the 8th round.
Yeah.
Like, the 8th round is the first round he really looked good in.
Mm-hmm.
I personally gave him the 2nd round, although it was really close.
Yeah.
On my scorecard. Like, it was debatable, but first round for me was clearly Lopez rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all Lopez.
Yeah.
We get up to 8, we see Lomanchenko really explode.
Yeah. In my opinion, I thought he was gonna finish him in the 8th. He hits him with a big. I think it was a straight right.
Yeah, halfway through the round, he had a big surge.
And then wobbles him, and then luckily Lopez has enough mind to actually wrap up. He wraps him up, but when he was trying to wrap him up, the ref was taking forever to step in. So Loma got some clean freaking punches straight up on his jaw, and you could tell he was feeling it. So luckily he was able to overcome that, get his legs under him, and he took.
It was a little bit of a headbutt in round 8 by Lomachenko on Lopez. Yeah, I don't know if it really caused that much of it. Was
Well, here's the thing with those headbutts is when you're talking about two guys who like to move around and he's closing the distance and he's moving around the outside, a lot of in and out, in and out, in and out. Those headbutts happen. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Just based off movement.
It is a part of boxing.
Yeah.
In the 8th round, you also saw Lomanchenko finally start to use some of Lopez's pressure against him.
Yeah.
And that really opened up some combos he was able to land.
He was landing clean.
Yes. Then in round 10, we saw some more lead uppercuts from Lopez, but still, this is where Lomanchenko kind of started winning these rounds.
Yeah, he was banking them.
Yeah. So on my scorecard, and pretty much everybody else's with the brain, other than, we're going to talk about the judging here in a second, which the decision wasn't controversial, but some of the scorecards were a little iffy. But, we see Lomachenko start to put these rounds together here for 8, 9, 10, and 11, basically. So it goes into the 12th round, though. He's still looking at needing a knockout to win. And yet, the 12th round, we see Lopez come back. It was close. Right up to the end, we had a little bit of controversy at the end of the 12th round.
I didn't like how it was handled there.
Yeah, we had another headbutt.
So another headbutt, incidental. Came from a flurry, but it cuts Lopez on the eyebrow. And instead of just resetting, normally when something like that, you just reset, they back up and then go.
Yeah.
Instead, he stops the fight and has a doctor come check it out, and
with 10 seconds left.
With 10 seconds left in the fight. It's nuts. And we're talking about round deciding punches here.
Yeah.
Like that round was very, very close.
Yeah, and they were in the midst of swinging.
Yeah. So the incidental headbutt comes in, he cuts him. He brings the doctor in for no reason. The doctor more or less just goes, yeah, sounds good, go ahead. And then in the last 10 seconds, I'm not going to say that it was all beneficial to Lopez, but Lopez came back from that 10 seconds with the second breath of wind and came in and landed some big, big shots that I think won him over the round. Yeah, some big right hands, if I
remember correctly.
Yeah. So
it definitely cemented the round for Lopez.
Yeah.
But luckily, even if Lomachenko had won that round, he would have still lost the fight.
Yeah, I think so too.
If we look at the judging, that's definitely what would have happened. Although there was one scorecard. Now, I personally had scored at 116, 112. I had given Lomachenko round 2, and then the rest up to 8 went to Lopez. Then 8, 9, 10, 11 I gave to Lomachenko, 12 to Lopez.
I had
Done
a
deal.
7-5.
So pretty similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had this wild scorecard on one of the judges. So, Lopez wins the decision, but when the scores are read, the first one we hear is 119-109.
Made
which,
no sense.
if you don't know how scoring works, that's saying that Lopez won 11 rounds to 1 round by Lomanchenko, and that's absurd.
Just made no sense.
That's absolutely absurd. The next score is 117, I believe, to what, 112?
Yeah, 117, 112. Or no, 111.
111, and which is pretty iffy
Still,
right there
that
as well.
One's, you're going to have a hard time explaining that one as well.
I mean, and then the final score is 116, 112, which is a pretty reasonable score.
It's reasonable, but even 116, 112, I think is kind of cutting it close too. I think it was closer than that.
So again, no controversy that Lopez won the fight, but this scoring was all over the place. And the 119, 109 is egregious. That's absurd.
Yeah.
Why are these judges not having to answer for this? I understand they're not paid that much, but you are paid and you took the job.
Yeah, 100%. It doesn't I hate that argument. That's the one argument that like everyone's always like, well, what are you gonna do about it? They get paid like $12 an hour for 3 hours of work. It's like, dude, I'm sorry, but like you're choosing to do that. If you do that kind of job, you should have some kind of love for the game. And in any other field, if you were working for $12 an hour and you're making mistakes, you would get fired. Like if you're flipping burgers, like and you're burning every burger, they just can be like, you only work for $8.25. We can't really tell you what. You can't really be like, we can't be hard on this guy. He's only making $8.25. No, they fucking fire you.
And I get it if these people don't want to go face the press. I get that. You don't want to go to the press conference. That's understandable. There's no reason why you couldn't have questions be submitted, and then the commission give them to the judges and say, we're going to need these answered by morning, please. You can submit it in writing. They give it right back to the commission. The commission releases the fucking statement. Yeah. Boom. We'd have something. Yeah. And it'd be a discussion point at least. Yeah. If you don't start doing that, if you don't have some accountability, there's no way to fix it.
No.
Because there's nothing you can look back and there's egregious scores, but there was nothing done. So it's absurd.
It is.
And someone needs to step in and do something. Mm-hmm. In both of the sports that we love here, we talk a lot about boxing. We talk a lot of course, about MMA on here, and I throw bare knuckle into the whole thing as well. They're all the same. We have these fucked up judging.
Yeah. Well, it really comes down to, and Teddy Atlas also pointed out on the broadcast there was a judge watching his phone during the fight.
That's incredible. I'm going to say the word again. That is egregious.
Yeah, that's terrible.
If you're judging the fight and you're worried about your pay, you shouldn't be judging the fight.
Yeah.
Because that's not what you don't make a living as a fucking boxing judge. I'm sorry. You don't. That's not why you do it.
Yeah, no.
So I'm tired of that excuse as well.
Yeah.
And these people need to have some accountability for their decision-making process like everyone else in the game does.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Let's talk about a possible rematch. Now, as much as we picked Lopez to win the first time, we figure there's going to be a rematch. Now, do you expect him to win the rematch, Paul?
No. I don't think so.
I don't either.
I'm not saying that he's not going to have a long-term success because he's young, but I think
he's 23.
Yeah,
he's not anywhere near his peak.
Where Lomachenko is in his career and where he is are two different places. And I feel like with a few adjustments, Lomachenko wins that fight pretty easily. And not saying that
it's not taking anything away from Lopez.
Not saying Lopez
Lomachenko's the best for a reason. He's 32. He's basically in his prime, maybe at the outer edges, But still.
I just point to these kind of things. It's just like let's look at the best moments of the fight. Like, when you compare their best moments of the fight, I just feel like Lomachenko was more dominant when he was on. But when Lopez was on, I just kind of felt like he was just using volume to win the fight. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was filling in. For all the inactivity that Lomachenko had in those first few rounds, he was filling it in with jabs, punches to the body. Not to say those weren't effective. I'm just saying, like, those score. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And scoring was more important than hurting him for those first 7 rounds because he knew how inactive he was in those rounds, that as a judge, scoring mattered more than hurting him. So I think later on in the fight, we saw Lomachenko hurt him more than Lopez ever hurt Lomachenko.
Lopez did rally in the 12th and have a great round, though.
He did, but
So
I think in 8 I thought it was over. I thought it was over. I thought he was wobbling. I was like, oh, he's going down. Just because he was just so. The thing is, with a guy like Lomachenko, is you just can't let him get momentum. Like he's very, very good at fighting with momentum. Like if he's landing
absolutely.
combos, he's gonna land them all day. That's his thing. You got to break his streak. You know what I mean? That's what he was doing the best. Is like if you go out there and you let him land 2, 3 punch combos in a row, he's gonna go have a field day. But if he goes and lands a 3 punch combo, goes to land another combo, you stop him and hit him with a big counter punch, then he's got to think. You got to make a guy like that think because he has such a high fight IQ, but you can also use that to make him overthink. You know what I mean? To disguise certain different things that you're doing throughout the fight. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting to see what happens next if there is a rematch or if they continue to try to unify the titles. Because as much as they keep calling Lopez the unified champion, there is another belt out there.
Yeah, Devin Haney has the WBC.
So
I want to see that fight too.
I would like to see that and then the rematch personally. Now I doubt that's
think
what'll
he gets
happen.
past Devin Haney.
I think he could get past Devin Haney too, and then he's already made history by having the 4 belts in the division. How about we just wrap it all up with 5, and then Lomachenko gets the rematch?
Or you think another thing we got to talk about here is Lomachenko is, although he wanted all this doesn't necessarily have to be the weight class he has to fight at. He could very easily go down. He could take this as him being a little bit bigger than him, which on fight night he was definitely bigger than Loma for sure, and go back down. Because his dominance is what got him here.
Interesting to see what plays out. One thing that I really liked for once, because it often doesn't work out this way, is that we had the boxing come on after the UFC.
Yeah,
so we were able to watch the complete UFC event, and then on the same channel, the boxing event comes on. Now, I did skip a lot of the undercard of the boxing, so I mean, I had it on, but I wasn't paying that much attention.
Dude, there was a guy who opened up the boxing main card. He was 14-0, 14 knockouts, all in the first round. An average fight time 1.5 minutes. Goes out, knocks that fool out in 1.5 minutes from Mayweather's team. I can't remember his name right now, but it was ridiculous. He is good as fuck.
So yeah, there's a little bit of a time gap, but we were able to watch an amazing UFC main event as well, where we had Brian Ortega versus the Korean Zombie at 145 pounds in a de facto number 1 contender bout. Mm-hmm. And the way it often works out with UFC and boxing prior to the pandemic is you wind up doing a lot of channel flipping, or you just got to catch, a repeat or, whatever.
Yeah.
So that was dope. I don't know if that's going to happen in the future again, but that was great for this
I like
weekend.
how they did that with Tyson Fury before too. These ESPN Plus cards, they like to time it out.
Yeah, when we wind up with the boxing on ESPN as well, I don't think they're ever going to make them overlap if they can avoid it.
Yeah.
Because they know that's the same audience. Mm-hmm. Now, not the boxing might not cross over to the MMA, but the MMA gets a lot of crossover in the boxing, in my opinion.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. We had the main event. We had Brian Ortega taking on the Korean Zombie. I think we really learned a whole lot of new stuff that we had never seen from Brian Ortega. He really, like we talked about last week, he really sharpened all his tools. He really has a polished game now. Before it was kind of, a little bit stiff.
That was the question last week is we know we changed camps. We knew he'd been out of the cage for a while, but that doesn't always mean the evolution is going to work.
And it sure did this time.
Boy, did it ever. He looked amazing. Yeah. And, I mean, he winds up getting a decision here against the Korean Zombie. But in my mind, and I'm sure everyone else's that saw it.
It was a 5-round decision, though.
Yeah, it was a 5-round decision. But this whole fight shifted in the second round. We had Brian Ortega unleash a spinning elbow at the absolute perfect time when the Korean Zombie was not only coming forward, but he was moving himself over to the right as well, which is directly into the oncoming elbow that he did not see. and it was the type of blow that would have knocked out anybody that wasn't Chan Sung Jung.
Yeah.
Because he has an incredible chin.
Mm-hmm.
But the fight wasn't the same after that.
No.
He was a step behind. He was not out on his feet, but he was just dazed. Mm-hmm. And he said afterwards, a couple of days later, that he couldn't remember anything from the third. He doesn't remember third, fourth, or fifth rounds of that fight, which makes sense considering that blow that he took. It was the perfect blow at the perfect time against an opponent who was doing the exact wrong thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean that blow won him the fight.
Absolutely. And here's the thing is, like, when you look at a guy like Ortega who takes like, well, didn't necessarily take 18 months off, but was forced to take 18 months off with multiple injuries and surgeries and stuff like that, and changing camps. That's all a lot to take in. It's a lot of change. It's a lot of stuff that could sometimes change for the worse. And obviously in this case, it changed for the better. And I feel like it's just put him right in that like mix where he was before without having the same skills that he has now.
Yeah, his striking against Max Holloway was pretty rudimentary, man. Rudimentary, however you want to pronounce it. Yeah. But it was you know, it was nothing impressive there. Basic. And he looked like a completely different fighter here.
Well, here's the thing: is he's always had the spinning back elbows, the flying knees, the interesting stuff that makes you a contender and makes your name pop.
Yeah, but his basics were pretty weak. His jab, his right, his hook, his boxing, his 1, 2, 3 is all pretty.
Now
he looked like a grappler trying to box. Yeah. Which now he looks like a guy who knows how to strike.
Exactly.
And that's a real big step up.
Absolutely.
That makes him a problem, because that means when he fights Volkanovski for the championship, Volkanovski can go back and look at all that tape he wants to against Max Holloway, but that's a different guy.
Yeah.
That's a different fucking guy.
Completely different guy.
So, I'm real impressed. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting it to be that good. I thought Zombie was going to get the win. I picked him in our fight picks, and I'm super, super, super impressed with Brian Ortega. And I'm looking forward to this title shot, because Dana's already come out and said he's getting it.
Yep. Which is big. Because now we're talking about featherweight moving on as well. Because, I mean, it's unfortunate those two Max fights didn't go his way, but you can't just keep making that fight. It's just not. It's not.
No,
right.
Dana was floating the idea of doing Max Holloway, Volkanovski again, which, like you just said, I'm sorry, the fights were close.
It's not right.
But that's
just not. Yeah.
It's not right. No.
You can't just hold up a whole division for one guy because judges can't get their job right. Like, it's just is what it is.
And it wasn't terrible.
Yeah,
it was like,
I mean, there were close fights. Yeah,
they were close fights. And what can you do? The champ, he's the champ. He won. You got to move on. And now we are.
The second fight was definitely worse than the first one, though. The first one, I can definitely see he won it for sure. Second fight, I thought Max won that fight.
Yeah, when we were done, I was expecting Max to get his hand raised.
Yeah.
I mean, it was what it was. But you can't sit here and tell Volkanovski, okay, you got to do it a third time. And all the other contenders to be like,
yeah.
It goes back to this judging problem we just talked about in the previous segment. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
So Ortega, Volkanovski. I'm not going to make any predictions now, but I'm excited about that fight. Let's hope it gets
going to be champion by the end of this next year.
By the end of 2021.
Yep.
You think he?
At least he'll. I don't know if he'll still be champion by the end of 2021, but I bet you he touches the belt at least once.
We'll find out. I'm excited. I'm much more keen on his potential seeing this. Like, when a fighter can evolve like that says a lot.
Because you know what I think happens? I think it's going to be him and Holloway are going to have a rematch if he gets the belt.
Now, that's a fight I'd be interested in.
Yeah.
We'll talk about rematches with Holloway for the belt. It changes his all up for him if Ortega wins.
Yeah. It would be big.
No, Volkanovski's a problem. We'll see.
He is.
He's a very, very, very tough guy.
There were some other great fights. We also saw Jimmy Crute come out and have a devastating knockout. Knocked the guy out about 3 times, like, if we're all being honest here. That freaking overhand, and then as he was going down, he popped back up, and then he goes down again, and it was a beatdown. It was great.
This is a 205-pound fight, so that's a big.
I think that's 4 in a row for Crute in the first round, or that was in the
that's
second.
a lot of power behind those punches.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he knocked him silly.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that's dangerous about Crute is he knocked that dude silly, but then in his last fight, he won by submission. His last 2 before that, he won by submission. So he can do it all. It's all a mental game for him because it's like he comes out and he has great performances, and then he had that one stinker, and you always like have to ask yourself, like, with a young guy like that, is that gonna break him? And for him to turn around and put this win streak together, it's big for not only his ranking but his mental, that like he can overcome a loss and move forward. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. He can do
still
some
young.
damage at
He's
205.
still super young. I think he's only like 25. So he's still super young in the fight game.
And he's definitely packing some power.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, another one who packed a lot of power was Jessica Andrade in her debut up at, flyweight?
At 125, the former 115-pound champ.
Moving to 125 after a couple unfortunate losses.
She made a bit of a statement against Chikugian.
Absolutely. For sure. And here's the thing is, when you look at this division, there's not a lot of contenders that necessarily can put together a win streak that's going to get them to Valentina or have that signature win that's like makes people clamor for a title shot. You know what I'm saying? And when you look at someone like Andrade, who's had success in other divisions and has this fan base and has been a former champion, she gets special treatment, and that's the game.
Kaylin's a fairly tough out. Is a definitely.
Well, no. I'm saying not saying she's not. I'm just saying, like, as far as getting to the belt, she doesn't necessarily. She's not gonna have to string together 5 wins to get to the belt.
She'll probably get the next title shot.
That's what I'm thinking.
This.
Yeah. Like after that performance, because of her status in the UFC, she's probably getting the next shot.
Yeah.
Overall,
I'm not mad at that because look, Andrade is a good fighter, but she's not going to beat Valentina Shevchenko unless Shevchenko comes out and has a terrible night, just is off her game.
Or drops her hands, and that happens. Because she's got a lot of power.
She packs a lot of power, but Shevchenko's not very mistake prone.
Shevchenko survived Nunes's bombs, so let's just be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Andrade is powerful, but she's not Amanda Nunes. Nobody is. And Shevchenko, arguably split those fights. And there's a lot of interest in a third fight with her, with Nunes. But when it comes to Andrade, I don't think she has much of a prayer of beating the champ. And I think it almost sounded like she knows it herself. I mean, she made some odd statements after the fight when they talked about Shevchenko. She was brought up, and she says, quote, "I think I'll give her a good fight." That's the
weird way to say it.
That's a really, man, I hope that's like just was phrased wrong because she's in the spotlight. Because if that's your attitude, then you've already lost the fight.
Yeah, for sure. You got to want to go take her head off.
I think she might give her a good fight. I think Shevchenko might just mow right through her.
Yeah.
You never know. She's a beast. She's on a whole nother level than a lot of these other women are.
Oh yeah.
She's on a whole nother level than a lot of other.
Well, that
MMA
like we've always talked about. It's like 1A and 1B when it comes to her and Nunes. So
yeah,
you got to really look at the talent gap when you're talking about those weight classes, and that's why it's good for, like, maybe she doesn't beat Shevchenko, but it's good for someone like that to be at that weight class, for everybody to have to step their game up to get through to her to get to Valentina.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, iron sharpens iron, and that's just how it is.
It's a good move for the featherweight division, or the flyweight, division.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, featherweight division. Don't even get me started with that thing.
The what division?
The women's featherweight division.
There was one other fight, though, on this card that I thought was impressive just because it was James Krause coming in on short notice yet again and winning yet another fight.
Claudio Silva, who's 75 years undefeated. He's only
this
fought
guy. When they're doing these fight introductions, Paul, they're like, Claudio Silva hasn't lost a fight in 14 years. And I was like, I'm texting you. I'm like, Paul, who is this guy? Why isn't he ranked? And why don't I know who he is? He hasn't lost a fight in 14 motherfucking years.
It's because he's only fought 15 times.
And then he comes out, and they're like, Claudio Silva, 14-1 or 15-1 or whatever. He's 15-1.
I think 14.
I got it right here. It was unbelievable. Yeah, he was 14-1. So he lost his first fight and then went on a 14-fight win streak and had one fight a year for 14 years.
It's a way to make a name for yourself.
Yeah. So he comes in at welterweight, and James Krause just lit him up, man. This guy had big, jiu-jitsu credentials, but didn't faze James Krause.
Dude, he was. The only way I could equate it to is playing a video game with your little brother who doesn't know how to play the game. He only knows how to play with the fucking haymaker button and the head kick button. Literally, that's all we ever saw. It was a few leg kicks. Don't get me wrong, the leg kicks were good, but
from Silva,
yeah. But the punches and kicks were all just trying to knock his lights out with every punch, and it's just not how you fight, man. That's not high level.
No, all Krause had to do was just lean back a little bit and throw in a straight 1-2 down the middle, and he's going to score, which he did, and he's going to avoid those ridiculously telegraphed punches, which he did.
Yeah.
And he's going to win the fight, which he did.
Yeah.
So, but we've got Krause quietly now on a 5-fight win streak, though, at welterweight, which is a bit of a statement here.
Yeah, a small side note as well, though, is Krause did suffer a knee injury in the second round, was able to overcome that and still win the fight.
He's a tough guy.
Yeah, he's tough.
He's a coach, too. He does a lot of training.
He does a lot of training with Lionheart.
Yeah. Sometimes he's
with Mark Montoya's team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him get, if he doesn't get a number after his name here, a low-level one.
Dude, he just beat a 15 years undefeated fighter. Come on, man. Let me get a number.
No, he deserves a ranked fighter in his next fight for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the UFC doesn't always reward people who step up for the company as they should, but sometimes they do. And he stepped up on short notice now several times, and he's gone out and won.
Absolutely,
and that's always impressive. And I believe he even took a fight at middleweight.
Yeah,
on short notice. He's fucking stepping up and getting shit done and pulling these wins out, and they should reward him with a ranked fighter. And
it's real cowboy-esque of him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime, anywhere, any weight class, I don't give a fuck. As long as I'm there. That's pretty much his motto. Yeah, that's why they talk about a lot of these times when he's in these training camps that he's training with the fighters and he's not meaning to lose weight, but he's naturally just, he's on weight because he's training with this guy, and then he'll show up to a card, somebody falls out, and it's hey, I'll take the fight.
And that's why he can take these fights too. Yeah, exactly, because there isn't really an off season if you're
game is fun.
If your side gig is coaching, and you're coaching high level fighters, not just teaching white belts and BJJ on the side out of the gym. No, we mean he's a high level coach. He's probably going to retire as a fighter and continue being a high level coach, like Dwayne Ludwig style.
Mm-hmm.
So that was exciting to see. I'm a fan, and let's hope he gets a big fight here next.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing too. One last note that James Krause did that kind of segues us into another fight from Saturday night. But James Krause, the reason he was able to really frustrate Silva so much with those stupid punches was he couldn't take him down. He stuffed 5 or 6 takedowns, and Krause did a real good job of never staying stationary and keeping a strong base.
Real good flow.
Yeah,
right?
and he was able to just flow from defensive move to just get out of there and get back to his feet. And although he got his butt, he got taken down technically once, but he never got taken down and controlled. And
he sprung back up pretty quick.
Yeah, and then he was able to ride with him on his back and not put himself in danger and still get out of there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're talking about that kind of stuff, and then you look at the fight that happened on the undercard between John Young Park and John Phillips, it's just a complete opposite.
Oh, my God.
It's a complete opposite.
I'm sorry, Paul. That fight was a disaster.
It was. And John
not
Young
on Park's part.
He broke Chael Sonnen's record for most ground and pound strikes in a middleweight fight.
Who did Chael get his against? Do you remember?
Can't remember.
Well, I'm probably going to bet that Chael's is still more impressive because I'm sorry, but Phillips looked
dog shit.
Awful in his last 2 fights combined. This looks like a guy that shouldn't even be in Bellator. I mean, look, call it as it is. No bullshit, bro. That was embarrassing. I was texting you like, "What is this? This is awful. This is not.
bad.
This is not something that we should be watching at this level."
It was bad.
Like, nobody should just sit on somebody and pound their fucking head. He had like 12 minutes, almost near 12 minutes of control time, and 250 plus ground strikes to 0. At one point, it was 235 strikes to 0.
Yeah, and here's the thing here's where where everything went downhill for him, is he didn't move. When he would move, he'd stop. He'd make a move and stop. He'd make a move and stop. And you just can't do that when
No
you're on
flow. Yeah.
well, it's not even that. It's just you don't have any base. You know what I mean? Like he has, you can't just stop, because then naturally if you push one way or try to move one way, I'm gonna move the opposite way. I'm gonna counter whatever you're doing. So it was just like he'd move and then give him a chance to counter, and then he'd take over. Like, it just made no sense, and it was just none of the strikes were devastating. I mean, some of them were pretty nice, but
they were just embarrassing.
They were just he's just like,
it was like he was just getting sunned out there. It was like a big brother just whooping the shit out of his tiny little brother. Like, it was just nothing. Like, I'm just gonna take you down. I'm gonna sit on you, and I'm just gonna fucking pound your fucking face.
Yeah, and there's nothing.
And I'm not gonna stop, and no one's gonna stop me.
Yeah.
Because mom's gone. Like, it was
mom's
just,
on vacation,
jeez, dude. It was so bad, I didn't even feel bad for the dude getting his ass kicked. I was like, dude, you just don't belong here, man.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
And Chimaev did the same thing to him in his last fight.
Yeah.
It was the exact same thing.
He
just sat on top of him and beat the crap out of him.
Chimaev's out there showing him how to defend a takedown in the back. Why do you have to show him how to defend a takedown?
Yeah, I thought that was odd, too. I was like, that's weird, but okay.
Yeah, like, all right, cool.
Well, I guess that's why, because you don't know how. And you ain't
he was
gonna
trying
learn.
to help him out. He's like, hey, bro,
right there,
I know where you
guy.
went wrong. I'll tell you where exactly. Like, come here real quick.
Hey, man. I don't want to see shit like that in the UFC.
No.
I mean, welcome to LFA with that nonsense.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's about it from that card. Overall,
Actually,
pretty entertaining. Is there something
more.
else on there?
One more. It's Jonathan Martinez stepping in last second,
Yeah.
taking on Thomas Almeida.
How could I forget
Put
Thomas
it on him,
Almeida's return on this card?
Put it on him.
22 months out for Thomas Almeida. Once one of the hottest prospects in the bantamweight division. This fight happened to be at 45. But there was a lot of heat behind his name.
Yeah, for a good minute there. And then Cody Garbrandt knocked it out of this guy.
Yeah. And now he's back. And wow, did he get handled.
He did. It just didn't look
Martinez looked amazing.
Yeah, he just looked like a step ahead and a split seconds quicker, you know what I mean? And every exchange. And that's a good win for Martinez.
Absolutely. Great win for Martinez. And
good for
about the
him
worst thing
stepping
that
in.
could have happened to Almeida.
Originally, this was supposed to be Thomas Almeida versus Alejandro Perez, which was another guy who was a former bantamweight. And, both those guys, like, that would have been a great fight. But then you get Martinez coming here and take that shit out of the way.
Yeah, he did.
Step in short notice during COVID time, which has got to be even harder because that means he probably had to quarantine 100% of the time instead of however much all the other guys had to, because they had planned this for months. This guy's talking 2 weeks before he's stepping in. So
well, he put on the show.
Yeah, it's a huge
excellent
win
performance.
For him.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about wraps that card out. So, I mean, a really good overall, pretty good card.
It was more entertaining than I expected.
Yeah.
I expected the main event to be great.
Yeah.
But now we can bounce ahead. We've got
one of the biggest fights of the year.
Absolutely. We're ending this run here at Fight Island with UFC 254.
Is this the last one in Fight Island?
As far as I know. I could be. Maybe there's another one after, but I think they're back here in Vegas.
Oh, word. I didn't know
that. We've got the return of Khabib Nurmagomedov, the 155-pound champ, versus the interim Justin Gaethje. And before we dive into that, I just want to say one little thing that's really annoying me about this fight and this fight promotion, Paul. And I don't really mean this as a slight to Nurmagomedov, although his fans are going to take it that way. But the fight promotion keeps calling him the most dominant champion in UFC history, and that is just complete and total horseshit. He's not even in the fucking running as one of the most dominant champions in UFC history, and this is why he won the belt and he has 2 defenses. Period. The fucking end.
Yeah, It's end of discussion.
That's all he's got. Are we going to pretend that John Jones has not been champion essentially for a decade?
We can pretend like GSP didn't defend his title forever.
Anderson Silva, Demetrius Johnson.
Demetrius Johnson, yeah, come on.
Who are we kidding?
Come on here. I know they're trying to just like kind of wipe Demetrius Johnson's like name off the UFC fucking database.
Petty.
But let's just be honest. It's either GSP, John Jones, or Demetrius Johnson. There's no other.
This is nonsense calling him the most dominant champion in UFC history.
Yeah,
it is utter ridiculous.
He only has 3 defenses. That's just really comes down to. If you are gonna call him the most dominant champion ever, you have to look at it as like, all right, look at his resume. Has he beat any, like, let's just be honest. How many past champions does he have on his resume?
He hasn't faced any killers until he fought Conor McGregor, who he smoked, and then he fought Dustin Poirier, who he handled. He had a little bit of trouble with at one point, and he lost a round to Conor, the only round he's ever lost. Mm-hmm. But he did win those and handily. You can't take that away from him, but that's it. Yeah. I mean, he did fight some fairly tough guys. I mean, he didn't most. I mean, he fought RDA.
His big 3. Well, let's just put it this way: to get to the belt, the people he fought was RDA, Michael Johnson, and Edson Barboza. Those were his 3 signature wins that really put him in like the, oh my God, look how dominant he is like thing. Because he made RDA, he ragdolled RDA. Michael Johnson rocked him, then he ragdolled him and punched him until he said made him quit. And then when you look at the Barboza fight, it's all bad with Barboza. That was just a fucking
Barboza's exactly worst kind of style.
Epic proportions. That was just a beatdown.
And then he wins the title and it's kind of a bullshit, a vacant title. They stripped Conor. Tony falls out. They throw in Ally Quinta on 24 hours notice and give it a title. Oh, yeah, it was going to be Max.
And then Max fails the weight cut, and then it's Ally Quinta, who was actually
scheduled to fight somebody else.
Paul Felder in the prelims.
And, then they give him a belt for beating Al, who he had trouble with.
Yeah.
And then he fights Conor like however long later, and then a year later he fights Poirier, and now here we are, and they're trying to call him the most dominant ever.
Well, and here's the thing too, is like we're talking about a champion who's had two different interim belts in his reign, and he's only
That's the
fought,
other thing.
Yeah, like come on.
His 2 defenses were both against 2 different interim champions due to inactivity.
Yeah.
Fuck me. So stop. He's a good fighter.
He's
you can't
great.
take that away from him.
He'll always be like in history for being like the longest undefeated, all that stuff like that. But to say he's the most dominant champion in UFC history is just an incorrect
John Jones,
statement.
not only did he win the title and defend it forever, but he beat every former champion in that weight class, and then he went on to beat a whole new generation of contenders after that.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
So did Demetrius.
Wins over Conor and Dustin they're not even in that fucking conversation.
Yeah.
Sorry, bro.
Sorry,
all you nerdy fans, but that's reality right there.
Yeah.
That's fucking truth.
Truth, yeah.
So
you look at Demetrius Johnson, he comes in, he beats everybody. He gets the belt, he beats everybody from that tough season. Then he comes in, they bring a whole set of champions only, tough season, 125 pounds.
They hold a fucking champions tournament, then he beats them motherfuckers.
Yeah, so let's just be honest, like it's not a slight to Khabib. It's just an incorrect statement.
It's the UFC making ridiculous statements
to try to sell the fight.
And then if you answer those statements with the reality, of course, all the Khabib fans are going to be like, "Oh fuck you! You go suck McNuggets nuts." Yeah. It's whatever. Truth is truth.
Truth is truth.
But now let's shift to the fight here. We've got a great fight here.
Absolutely.
It's an exciting fight. It's going to be Nurmagomedov's toughest fight.
I think so.
Justin Gaethje is different. He has not fought Khabib against someone with the wrestling credentials that Gaethje has. Now, while he hasn't put them to use like, say, a Michael Chandler has, he does possess them. He's been wrestling his whole life, just like Khabib has.
Yep.
It's a different beast than, say, a Conor.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I happen to think Conor McGregor versus Justin Gaethje, I think Conor wins. I don't think Conor's ever going to beat Khabib. And I think that Gaethje beats Khabib Nurmagomedov this upcoming weekend in Abu Dhabi.
Here's the thing. The key word for this fight is scramble. And that's where we're going to see who wins this fight. The person who wins the scrambles is going to win this fight in the long run. Because it's really going to come down to all right, this is my. If I'm Justin Gaethje, this is my game plan, and I think this is what will work against Khabib. So the first 2 rounds, Khabib's always known to go wrestle heavy early in the fight. So the first 2 rounds, you wrestle him. You know that it's gonna take a lot out of you to wrestle him off you, and you know that he tends to fade late. So I think the first 2 rounds, you don't throw anything crazy. If he stands with you, stand with him. But if he tries to wrestle you, just try to keep it in the middle of the mat. Because when you keep it in the middle of
You
the
don't want to be
octagon,
against the fence against
yeah,
Khabib.
Khabib has a problem.
In the middle
So
of the octagon.
yeah, so I think the biggest thing is for him to keep scrambling and not give up stupid positions, which I just don't see him doing, just based off muscle memory.
And that happens a lot when people fight Khabib. They wind up getting in a
Conor
bad
McGregor's
position.
a perfect example.
Yeah.
When you watch how Conor got finished, he was super long. When you don't want to be long like that when you're trying to stand up. You want to be tight and explosive. You don't want to be
Talking
all
about when
long.
he was down against the fence.
When he was on the fence
Yeah.
and he kicks his butt out and his freaking ass is in the air, his freaking
And he's like
head's on the
curled
ground, and then he
yeah.
just gets choked out. And that's just you're
Was
not
it-
going to get into those situations with Justin Gaethje. He's never going to be that out of position just based off muscle memory. Not even that he's just technically better or on par with Khabib or anything like that. It's just he's wrestled long enough to know that in high pressure situations, those kind of positions are live or die.
Yeah,
You know
so
what I
you
mean?
nailed it right there with muscle memory. A guy like Conor McGregor, he's not retarded. He brought in a whole bunch of wrestlers,
And
high
at
level,
the
to
beginning,
train.
he was doing well. At the
And he did
beginning,
okay, but when
yeah.
it got down to the nitty gritty,
Yeah.
and you're exhausted, and you're relying on the muscle memory, somebody like Justin Gaethje, who's been wrestling since he's 6,
Yeah.
is going to have a huge advantage over Conor McGregor, who hasn't been, who's
Yeah.
been training in the gym for the past 18 months on his wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different world.
But you know what I'm
So,
saying? Like,
yeah.
and the thing is, too, so back to my ultimate game plan. So the first 2 rounds, I think you wrestle him. And I think going into the third round is when you start trying to just unleash hell. Like, you know, and I know Justin Gaethje knows how to unleash hell. And I think in that 3rd to 5 round ratio, he's got to just fly like a bat out of hell and just keep going until he finishes him. Because if he doesn't, I don't know. Like, I think Khabib's dangerous. He's dangerous, like, submission-wise, if you gas out. And I feel like if you can gas him enough and just go to town, you're never going to finish him. Like, he's never going to tap. It's going to be hard to drop him, but you're going to have to knock him out cold or force the ref to stop the fight. I think he's going to have to just blitz him.
Well, that
From
ties
3 to
into my
5.
prediction, forcing the ref to stop the fight. I personally think that's what is going to happen because of his chain wrestling abilities. We've never seen Khabib take sustained damage from a fighter.
Yeah, true.
But just like everybody knows that Khabib is going to chain wrestle and take you down, we know that's going to happen at some point in the fight. We know that Gaethje's opponents are going to take damage.
Mm-hmm.
Never seen. Conor couldn't get that damage off because of the wrestling. He'd land a punch or two.
I don't think I've ever seen Khabib bleed.
He hasn't had to, but he's going to bleed against Gaethje. That's a given. It's going to happen. How is he going to respond to that? And Gaethje packs a punch, too. How is he going to respond to taking sustained damage? I don't think very well. Now, I don't mean like he's going to give up in his heart. I just mean I don't think he's going to be able to take a sustained beating that Gaethje's going to put on him, and the ref is eventually going to stop in and wave it off, probably in the 4th round.
Yeah, I'm thinking 4th or
I'm thinking
mid
4th
fifth.
round TKO, Justin Gaethje, and new.
Me too. I agree with that.
All right. And that's a bold prediction, but we're known for bold predictions that come true on this show. You can take it to the bank with our Teofimo Lopez predictions. Shit. And hopefully next week we're talking about that as well. And from a fan perspective, look, I just want Gaethje to win. I love that guy. He's a great fighter. Met him before. He's a cool dude. He's out from my home state, Colorado. I like everything about him except his manager. But whatever, man. That's irrelevant. I'm really rooting for him this weekend on a fan level as well.
Yeah, I'm picking Gaethje.
So we've got a co-main event at 185 pounds on this card.
Title eliminator.
It is a yes, for sure, title eliminator. We've got former champion Robert Whittaker making his return against surging contender Jared Cannonier.
coming off a win over Jack Hermanson in devastating fashion.
Yes.
And
Now,
that was before COVID.
I am a fan of Robert Whittaker, and I think he is an amazing fighter, but we've got something a little bit different happening here. We have got Whittaker, who came up at one point from 170, and we've got Jared Cannonier, who's coming down from one point at heavyweight, and not because he was overweight. He was
Overweight. He was overweight when he was a heavyweight.
Well, I got to be honest. I didn't have seen him at heavyweight, but at light heavyweight, he wasn't.
Light heavyweight he wasn't, but at
ripped.
heavyweight he was.
And right now, he's ripped,
Yeah.
and he packs a lot of power. And I think when you have two fighters of fairly equal skill, I mean, Robert Whittaker probably has better boxing.
I don't think they're equal in skill.
I think Cannonier's power is just going to come into play here. He's used to moving around a bigger, heavier frame, and I think he's going to KO Whittaker. I think he's going to surprise some people and wind up losing to Adesanya.
I disagree. Not in the fact of losing to Adesanya, but winning this fight. I think that Whittaker is much more skilled in boxing and much more skilled overall. And I think that in a 3-round fight, he's going to put together a game plan that is just not going to – you're not going to have those same openings for those big, huge punches that Cannonier's kind of leaned on at this, like, lower weight class. Like, we never see anything that's, like, ridiculously skilled like Cannonier has done. It's been a lot of power movement.
True, but see, that's why I think the 3-round fight actually favors Cannonier, because he can go for broke without worrying about those later rounds, where I think a 5-rounder, if Whittaker could outlast the power, he's got the skill set to win a decision probably. But
I see him following a similar plan like he did when he fought Darren Till, of just picking his shots and exploding in combinations, but outside of that, controlling the distance and not letting him get too close.
So you think Whittaker takes it and then goes on to fight Adesanya again?
Yeah.
I'm going Cannonier with a vicious knockout and a wild prediction here of seeing Robert Whittaker drop back down to 170.
Oh, I don't see that at all. I don't see
That just popped in. That might be the Mary Jane affecting my brain. But
maybe he loses, but I don't know about dropping down to 70 again.
I don't think so. He's pretty small at welterweight, man.
No, he's not.
I mean at middleweight.
I don't think so.
We'll see.
I think you've been smoking.
I have been. That's what we do here. It's almost like we've been smoking a long time before the show started.
Yeah, moving on. Then we got a heavyweight fight here on the main card as well. We got Walt Harris coming back, taking on Alexander Volkov.
Oh, man. Walt Harris. This is a dangerous fight for Walt Harris. I feel about this fight the same way I felt about his last fight against Alistair Overeem. I wish they'd give him someone different to get his groove back. You know, everybody knows what happened to Harris. His daughter, stepdaughter, whatever, murdered. Terrible thing. He comes back, loses to Overeem. Now he's back against another really, really tough out. I want the guy to win. I'm rooting for Walt Harris as a fan. I think this is a little too tough of a matchup, man. I mean, he's got a chance.
I think the length is really going to be the issue.
But yeah, Volkov is very, very lanky, very long, and a very tough out. And I don't like Walt Harris's chances here, and that makes me kind of sad, Paul. Keeping it real.
I don't know if it really makes me sad, but I mean,
I'd like the guy to get a win, man. He deserves a win.
But it's a Shark Tank where he's at in the division.
It is.
There's no easy fights.
He's already kind of a proven contender, so he's not going to get those up and coming fights. You know, he's going to have to fight people like this. Such is MMA.
Yeah, it's really what it comes down to is like you can root for the guy, but you can't really. He's in this, you know, like he needs to win fights like this to get to where he wants to be, and if he gets this done, that's big for him. But I just don't see it.
Yeah, it'll be entertaining. I hope he pulls it off. Buck, I hope he goes out there and sleeps him. Nothing against Alexander, but I'm rooting for Walt here. Hope he gets to win, but I wouldn't bet my money on it here in Vegas.
All right, now let's move on down to the fight that's been announced 100 times and booked 3 times and fought once, but it was an unfair knockout.
This is such a weird situation.
Yeah.
This is at 205 pounds.
Yeah.
We're talking about Ian Cutelaba versus
Magomed Arkalov.
In this fight, they fought once, and in the first round, I believe it was Cutelaba landing blows, and Magomed does this wobble.
The other way around.
The other way around?
Other way around.
It's been so long and so many bookings since then.
Cutelaba's the one who was
pre-COVID.
Yeah, he was doing some kind of like shimmy, like faking like he was hurt, so he would get him to come in and then hit him with a big shot. And it worked earlier. It worked earlier in the fight. Earlier in the fight, it works, and then like 15 seconds later, he does it again. Does it twice, so I think the ref thought in his mind, "Oh God, that's the second time it happened. It must be real," and he calls it off.
Yeah, he runs in and just stops the fight for literally no reason. I mean, he thought in his head, but I don't think there's any denying that was no reason to stop the fight. Whether he was genuinely a little bit wobbled or if he was faking the little wobble, it was only a little wobble.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Nobody was looking at that going, the fight's over.
Yeah. No.
So they rebook it, and then it gets canceled. And then they rebook it, and then it gets canceled.
COVID.
Now here we are with the 4th rebooking, 5th time overall.
Yeah.
Who do you got this time?
I'm going to take Magomed just because he won the first time. And guess what? He's going to keep it moving.
I'm going to take the Hulk.
The Hulk?
Do you think he's going to paint his face green, Eon? Because there's no way in.
No.
There's no crowd.
What if he came out to the fight green?
That'd be funny.
That'd be nuts.
Yeah, I'm just going to pick him just to be contrarian. I don't know. But
yeah, sure you are.
Fuck it. Let's hope it finally goes off, dude, because I don't want this to get rebooked again.
Then moving on down on the prelims, we got Stefan Struve coming back, taking on Tai Tuivasa.
Tuivasa, still a young up-and-comer, but he's got a little bit of experience now. He's taken some losses against elite competition because he wasn't ready for it yet.
Yeah, I don't think he was. But he's so sellable to the on the media side of things. He's good on podcasts. He's good on the embedded stuff. He's good on all that. He's entertaining, He's
got that Street Fighter background, mystique.
Yeah.
And he drinks the shoeies. Yeah. And he's funny.
Yeah.
And he's got some power. And he's fighting a guy that, I tell you what, Paul, the first time I saw Stefan Struve years ago, like when he first hit the UFC, I was like, you give it 5 years and this is the fucking champ right here.
Yeah.
He's basically 7 feet tall. I mean, he's 6'11" and a half, and then for a while they were saying he was 7 foot tall, and now he's back to 6'11" and a half or whatever.
Yeah.
Call him 7 foot tall. He's a kickboxer. He's a Dutch kickboxer, and his frame looks like it'll hold a lot more weight if he chooses to bulk up. Which here lately he has added some weight, but I thought he had all the tools, man. If he would just learn how to use them. And he's never evolved past this certain point of learning how to use all that length to his advantage.
Yeah, no.
And most people can just get up on the inside on him and fuck him up.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what's going to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
Is Tuivasa's going to bull rush him on the inside, land some body blows, and then a monster uppercut, and Struve's going to go to sleep off of it.
Yeah, I see it happening too. I'll take Tuivasa knockout round 2.
I usually don't call the exact punch, but I think it's going to be an uppercut on the inside.
I see it more of an overhand.
And he might take a hook on the way down.
He doesn't use his length, man. It's like I've seen plenty of guys smaller than him knock him out with overhand, so I can see that one.
He's got so much potential. Not anymore. I mean, he is who he is at this point. He had. Can you just imagine him if he could put it all together?
I know.
And he was so good on the ground too, and he's like wrapping people up with these limbs that are like the length of some fucking men.
Yeah, dude, he's fucking huge.
He could have been a real problem, but whatever. He's still got talent and skills. He's still a UFC heavyweight.
Yeah, true.
Rightfully so, but I thought he was the guy, man.
Yeah, could have been.
But I'll be excited to see how this fight goes, but I think we're going to see Tuivasa with the KO here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that about wraps up that card in our show for today.
Absolutely. We're going to get back to smoking on this Gorilla Glue and this Papa's OG. We hope you're smoking on something fine as well. If you're brand new to the show, you can find us wherever you get your podcast from, be it Spotify, Apple, or if you like video on YouTube or anywhere in between. All of that handy information is in one location, Paul.
SWATmma.com, where you can head over, click the gear button, buy a t-shirt, and support the podcast, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.